Greetings, I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today I'm going to build this Team Yankee British Scorpion or Scimitar troop. Well, I only built it as the Scimitar, but the choice to make Scorpions is there. These are 15mm scale plastic tanks by Battlefront, intended for their game Team Yankee, obviously. On the back of the box we have an exploded diagram for instructions. There's no separate sheet of instructions for this kit, but you can find some instructions and more information on teamyankee.com. For your convenience, I will put a link in the description. There's also a list of what you'll find inside the box, which we will look at now. There are 4 of these sprues. You can build 4 tanks with this kit, so that makes perfect sense. There aren't a lot of parts here, but this is a 15mm scale wargaming kit. It is designed to be relatively simple to build, and that's not a bad thing. All the parts here are pretty neat and well moulded. Of course, there are some minor mould lines that you will need to clean up, but they're not too bad. If you've been in this hobby for a while, you'll probably be used to cleaning up mould lines anyway. As far as mould lines go, these ones won't take you too much time at all. The detailing is pretty nice. Models in small scales like this are of course always going to omit some details. That's just something that has to be done to make the kit practical to make. Also, most wargamers probably don't really want insanely fine details that will break every time you even think about looking at the model. All of that said though, I think the parts look pretty good and there is a lot of detail here. I particularly like the tracks. They look pretty good. The box did say that there is 1 tank commander sprue included, but either I didn't get that, or I misplaced it before I started the build. There are however commander figures on the sprue, so maybe the box is wrong. Either way, it doesn't bother me because I don't normally include commander figures anyway. In addition to those plastic bits, there are stat cards. 2 for the Scorpion and 2 for the Scimitar. I'm assuming these are helpful when putting together your force, and for remembering the details and stats when playing Team Yankee. And a little decal sheet. There's enough markings here for 4 vehicles, and they should be pretty decent. I've never had an issue with Battlefront's decals in the past. Cool, so let's glue some plastic together. Actually first, magnetization. This is pretty simple. The magnets I'm using are thicker than what Battlefront would suggest to use, so they won't perfectly fit between the turret and hull, there'll be a gap. So what I do is glue one of them either inside the hull or the turret. I made a slightly more in-depth video about this, which you can check out in the card in the upper right corner, or the handy link in the description. Okay, now it's time to glue bits of plastic together. First, the tracks, which are single parts and, in my opinion, very nice. The detail inside the tracks and wheels is great, especially considering how tiny this is. The tread detail isn't the best, but I think it's a pretty fair trade-off to have this as one piece. Gluing the tracks onto the lower hull part is a fairly simple affair. There is keying that should stop you from gluing them on backwards, but just in case, the drive sprocket goes towards the front, which is the closed end of the hull with the 2 knobs. The fit is pretty good, and you really don't need to add too much pressure, but I did because force of habit, I guess. I add the upper hull part next, which is also simple and you should be able to tell if you've got it on wrong. Though to be fair, there is a little bit of play here, so I pushed it as far back as I could while still having it in place. Makes sense, right? There's a big gap at the rear, and you might think, well, that doesn't look very good. And you're right. That's why we cover it with this rear hull part. This is pretty easy to put on, and I try to line up the skirty bits on the sides because otherwise it might look a bit weird. There is a bit of a gap at the top here, but that should be easy enough to fix. Also, it could be hidden by the turret anyway. You can also put a stowage box on the rear here, but I kind of like the way the rear of the hull looks, so I only did that for one of the tanks, and I didn't film it because, well, I'm a ding-dong. It's pretty simple to install anyway. And that's the basic hull together. Let's go and see to that turret. The upper and lower halves are pretty simple to glue together. I found I needed to apply a bit of pressure, particularly at the front left, but otherwise it went together well. Next, I glue the main gun into place. This includes the entire mantlet and gun in one part, and it's pretty well detailed considering that. I decided not to drill out the end of the gun barrel because of how small it is. I didn't want to risk damaging it. Also, it's probably worth noting, The only real difference between the Scorpion and Scimitar is this gun part. The Scorpion one is, well, obviously different. The longer gun, which I've used here, is for the Scimitar, this being a Scimitar. Perfectly clear. If you wanted, you could magnetize the parts so that you could easily swap between the Scorpion and Scimitar. I don't actually play Team Yankee, not yet anyway, so I didn't feel a need for that. And if I were to play, I would just proxy one as the other anyway. The Commander's hatch goes on next. I'm obviously modelling mine closed, but if you are inclined to include the Commander figure, I feel like now would be a good time to do that. Obviously you would need to glue the hatch in the open position to have the Commander, and not just have them sitting on top of the hatch, because that would be weird, but I'm sure you don't need to be told by me to figure that out. With the hatch in place, the basic turret is done. Simple. I did have the idea to add stowage to match the Scimitar at Tank Ride that I'm familiar with. Unfortunately, this kit doesn't include the same stowage options and bits and pieces that vehicle has. That's okay though, it is still a cool little model. There are other boxes and stuff that you could put on the turret if you wanted, but this is all I did. There are optional bits for the hull too, and this isn't one of them. Well, I guess you could leave it off if you wanted, but I think it definitely looks better with it, and it's not hard to attach, so why not? I did also attach some of the spare wheels. I wasn't quite sure where to put them, so after a bit of fiddling, I just decided to put them on the engine deck, as though they've just been thrown there and aren't permanently mounted. I also fiddled around with jerrycan placement. It was kind of tricky to find a placement that really satisfied though. So I didn't end up using a lot of the extra stowage bits, but they will be happy in their new home, the bits box. These tanks didn't end up looking as much like the one at Tank Ride as I wanted them to, and you can probably see some of the differences here as it whips by. That obviously doesn't make it a bad model though. For all I know, there could be many different stowage configurations this vehicle had. At any rate, the 15mm scale plastic Scimitar, or Scorpion, though obviously I didn't build a Scorpion, for Team Yankee is now complete. I'm pretty pleased with this little kit. It is a tiny model because, well, it's a tiny vehicle, and in my opinion, they've managed to pack a lot of nice detail into this little thing. In these end clips you'll see a couple of slightly different configurations, though there's not a huge amount of difference between them. That's okay by me. The slight variations are mostly just to tell them apart anyway. I have no idea how effective or useful these are in Team Yankee, and to be honest I don't really care. I just like having cool models and, like I said earlier, I don't play Team Yankee. Not yet anyway. Heck, why not just start another army?
It costs money, Herbert.
Quiet you. Anyway, this is a pretty simple kit to put together, though I doubt anybody is surprised by that. After all, it is a wargaming kit, and I'm pretty sure that most gamers don't want to spend 500 hours building a model. So for those into scale display models, this might not be the kit for you. It's just that this kind of kit does have a target audience, and in my opinion, it's great for that audience. Of course, there's nothing to say that you couldn't build a small diorama with this. In fact, I think that would be a great idea for people with limited space. I rather enjoyed putting these together. I should really do more 15mm scale stuff. It's nice and relaxing, and it's quite pleasing to see something come together in a short amount of time. I built these scimitars over 2 streams, mostly so I could do a morning and evening stream to get multiple time zones. Anyway, if you would like to watch me build stuff like this live on stream, head on over to twitch.tv/Herbert Erpaderp, or use the convenient link in the description. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave those in the comment section below. If you've built this kit before, and you want to share pictures, why not drop by our Discord community and share there? There's a link in the description. If you haven't done so already, why not subscribe, follow, ring the bell, become a patron or YouTube member, or maybe just come say hi on Discord or Twitch. And if you are feeling especially helpful, why not share this video with your friends or anybody you think might get something out of it. Links to all of my things are in the description below, and as always, I shall return soon, so until then, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.